I'm not procrastinating watching Rings of Power. You are. Shut up.
Well, that sucks.
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. Oh, and there will be spoilers for the following things. You have been warned. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. I just got back from vacation at Paradise Ranch, Wyoming. It was beautiful, the food was amazing, and I had a great time. But there was one downside. The Wi-Fi there was absolutely terrible at the best of times. I couldn't watch anything, and I couldn't doom scroll while on the toilet. So that left only one option, reading. Luckily, I brought a lot of books with me, one of which is this. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is one of Brandon Sanderson's secret projects that he wrote while under COVID lockdown. At first, I didn't really like the book. The start was very slow and the characters were just thrown into the situation without any goals of their own. But by the end, Sanderson wrapped everything up so beautifully that it made me appreciate the entire package more. And that got me thinking about the recent ending to My Hero Academia and how the ending is so important to a story. Yeet. Nailed it.
I can handle things, I'm smart! Not like everybody says!
Anyone who says that it's about the journey, not the conclusion, is a fool. Okay, when it comes to real life, yeah, it's not about the ending because you can't always control that. I mean, we're all going to die one day. Just because that's going to happen doesn't mean that we shouldn't live our lives. But when it comes to a story, you have complete control about how everything ends. The ending of a movie, a TV show, a book, a video game, they all matter because it puts everything into context. If the conclusion sucks, then it kind of sours you on the entire experience. You felt like you wasted all of your time. Just look at Game of Thrones Season 8. Despite all of the achievements in storytelling in cinema within the first couple of seasons of the show, people only remember the bad ending at this point. The ending was so terrible that people can't even watch the prequel series House of the Dragon without thinking about it. No, it actually gets even worse. The showrunners were supposed to direct Star Wars movies after Game of Thrones was done, but the ending was so bad that they got kicked out of the projects. That is why you, as the writer, do not give up at the very end. It makes everyone look terrible. The greatest actors, the greatest sets, none of that would matter if the writing just sucks. No, George R. R. Martin did not finish his books yet, but he could have, so that's on him. So the showrunners should have just went with their own ending. Daenerys should have been the queen with Jon at her side. That's how it should have ended with the story that they told. And if Martin has a problem with it, well, then he should just go ahead and lock himself in a room and finish writing the damn books instead of being a producer on a bunch of things to get your name on the credits. Write the damn books, George. On the other hand, a great story can turn a seemingly mediocre story into something phenomenal. The Sixth Sense is a good movie, but it's not until the ending where there is a giant twist that you put everything into perspective and think about how good it actually was. It was a twist ending so perfect that everyone had to go back and watch the film a second time. And it was so perfect that M. Night Shyamalan could not ever live up to it ever again. Same thing with Inception or The Mist. The endings made you think, and that was important. They didn't have to necessarily be happy endings, but they were still impactful endings. Not everything needs to end like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where everything worked out, everyone was happy, and you ended on a kiss. Whether or not the ending should be happy or sad is determined by the story that you're trying to tell. If you're telling a tragedy, everything can't work out well in the end. And if you're writing a family story, not everyone can die. That's not how it works. I'm not saying that there can't be a little bit of sadness, but let's not scar little Jimmy too much. Of course, Old Yeller is a thing, and some of these kids seem a little bit too soft to the point that they're saying that Inside Out 2 was too stressful for them.
Yes, very sad. Anyway, it got me thinking.
The difficult thing about endings is that there are no hard and fast rules for any of it, just like with most of storytelling. Okay, there are basic rules and tropes, but you learn them so that you can deconstruct them and make something your own. Not like that though. There is such thing as going too far to subvert expectations, even though I love The Last Jedi and think that's hilarious. It all boils down to what type of story are you telling. If you're telling a romantic story, then the audience expects and wants the people to end up together in the end. There is a reason that Romeo and Juliet spoils the ending at the very start. There's a reason why there's mixed opinions on something like La La Land, where the characters could have ended up together and had their dreams. Personally, I like it because I think that it tells a really solid message that people wouldn't learn otherwise, but still. You could even look at something like Breaking Bad. I know plenty of people that have mixed opinions on the ending. They feel that Walter won too much. And you know what? I can see what they mean. Walter got revenge on everyone that he hated, he got the money to his kids, and he got to die in a lab. Walter really didn't receive all that much punishment. Sure, he was out in the wilderness alone for a while, and that messed with his head, and his health was degrading, but still, everyone around him suffered a lot more. But that's also true to life. When someone is irredeemably evil, the people around the sociopath tend to suffer a lot more than the person themselves. So overall, I did like the ending myself, but I can see the problem with the framing. Walter seemed like the conquering hero who got everything he wanted in the end, and that's an issue with someone that's so evil. At least in a show that seems to have a moral code, which Breaking Bad does. In comparison, Better Call Saul does a little bit of a better job because Jimmy doesn't get everything that he wants. In terms of punishing Saul Goodman, the show does a great job. In order to preserve his relationship with Kim just a little bit and keep her out of jail, he took the blame for everything. He got to preserve a little bit of Jimmy and have one final farewell with Kim, all the while being in prison with a bunch of people who will not let him be Jimmy. He is Saul Goodman to them. He made his cage, and guess what? Now he has to live in it. And the romantic part of me hated this at first. Or, well, one specific part of it. I really wanted everything to turn back to color at the end, and for the theme music to play as they faded to black. But guess what? I was wrong in that moment. For the story of Better Call Saul, this was the perfect way to end it. Better Call Saul is a modern tragedy, so it can't end on a happy note with music playing. I understand that now. It was just my initial response. But after thinking, I understood what they were going for, and they were right to do so. The ending has to fit what was promised to the audience. That's a reason why people had a problem with My Hero Academia's ending. The promises were that Deku would be a hero and that he would get the girl. And guess what? Neither of those things were shown. The number one rule of writing is show, don't tell, and we were told a hell of a lot. If instead Deku was shown being a hero and struggling in his last few years, then retiring as a teacher, all while having a loving wife and child, then guess what? People probably would have been a lot happier with it. Same thing with Fairy Tail and Bleach. There was a lot of telling because the creators were rushed. I don't know if it's because they just wanted to be done or if their editors were pushing them. A wild cream has appeared. It really makes me appreciate the ending to Naruto. You know, if it actually ended instead of continuing into the sequel series that I really don't want to exist. I'm sorry, all of my friends that are pushing me to read it, I just can't do it. But it could be worse. It could be like Attack on Titan where the main character is reincarnated into a bird and looks after his love interest to make sure that she doesn't move on. That was so bad.
What the hell is this?
Some things just need a lot more expanding and a lot more time, in comparison to the exact opposite. Probably one of the few criticisms I have for Lord of the Rings is the fact that its ending goes on and on and on. There's about 50 different endings. The conclusion and epilogue is a movie or a book in and of itself. You can like that aspect of it, that's fine, but there's no denying that it goes on and on and on. But why do so many authors, writers, and creators struggle with the conclusion? It's because they need to fit in everything. The character development, the themes, the plot, the setting. They need to pack it all into a box and tie it up with a perfect bow. Sometimes authors like Stephen King just don't know how to end things, so they just blow everything up. Other times, writers get into their head that this one specific ending has to happen, and they will fight tooth and nail to have the story conclude that way. That is what happened with How I Met Your Mother, and why the final episode sucked so badly. Throughout How I Met Your Mother's many seasons, it became clear that Ted needed to give up on Robin in order to find the love of his life. But then, the final scene threw all of that away, because the twist was that the mother was dead all along, and Ted was trying to convince his kids to let him be with Robin. Yay, that doesn't suck at all.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Barney and Robin should have been together, and the show should have ended with Ted just saying, "And kids, that's how I met your mother." And I know that they were kind of stuck because they filmed everything with the kids during season 1, and they couldn't exactly go back in time to when they were actually teenagers and film again, but still, they should have just shown generic footage of the kids and ended there. I learned this with my book Dragonskin. I really wanted one particular ending where everything was just tragic. But then as I went on, I realized, okay, I can't do that. That would ruin the story. So the writers need to foreshadow how things are going to end, but also make sure the audience is surprised at the same time. Also, you need to fit all of the themes, the character development, and the plot into the ending to make it perfect. And no matter how well you plan things, you are going to have to make at least small adjustments in order to fit what was altered. I'm not going to say that it's easy. As someone that's written about like 32 books with only about 5 of them actually ready and published, I can tell you from experience that it can be a bit difficult. But it's also, kind of the writer's job to pull it off. It's what they signed up for. So if the ending sucks, it's on them. There is a lot that a writer needs to take into account, and a lot of ways that things can go wrong. I just hope that this video points out some of the reasons why some of the endings might suck and why others are so good. Like with every skill and every form of art, creating an ending takes a lot of practice. And unfortunately, that's the thing that a lot of writers practice the least. They start a bunch of new projects and they get partway through, but then they never get to the ending. That's part of the issue. Honestly, what I think might help would be giving a bunch of writers an exercise where they have to read the beginning and middle of a story and make their own conclusion. That and studying some of the best endings ever written in order to learn from others' experiences. That's always an option. You can always look at the all-time greats and see how they pulled off their miniature miracles. Let's see, things with perfect endings. Despite its length, I do think Lord of the Rings has a perfect ending. It's just drawn out. Also, there is The Sixth Sense, which I mentioned earlier. There's the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. That ending was phenomenal. Very dark, but phenomenal. I already mentioned Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. As for shows, obviously Avatar and Better Call Saul. And oddly enough, the conclusion to Ed, and Eddie was actually really good too. The endings to Batman, Arkham City, and Persona 3 sit in my mind all the time. So there are plenty of good examples in all forms of media and in all different genres. Same thing with the bad. You can learn from other people's mistakes too. Plus, feedback from beta readers and a sample audience. That can help a lot to see other people's perspectives. There are plenty of ways to help avoid a bad ending. At the same time, you can't be too crowd-pleasing. Look what happened with Breaking Bad. That's why some people have some issues with that conclusion. So, inexperience, ego, crowd-pleasing, and outside manipulation can all get in the way and make a bad ending. A lot of things can get in the way, but guess what? Good writing always wins in the end. But what do you think? Were there some endings that I thought were good that you thought were bad, or the opposite? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, if you disagree with all of this, that's fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
This is an outrage! A travesty! A plukey pluck!
A plukey pluck?
I made that last one up.
Thank you all so much for watching.
You're still here?
Good night, everybody!
Thank you. You bye. Boom.
Do not despair.